And upcoming session, our honored guest, Dr. Andrew Storrs, past president from CFA Society Thailand, will speak on the topic, the role of analysts in strengthening Megaforce. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me to welcome Dr. Andrew Storrs on the stage, please.
Okay. Thank you very much for having me, and my job is to talk about the role of analysts. I started as an analyst in 1993 at a broker called Tawanok Finance. As you know, this broker was number one and was closed after the crisis. So I'm going to talk a little bit about my career and some of the things that I've learned as an analyst. The key thing is that I love being an analyst. When I sat down on my first day on the job as an analyst, I just knew this was for me. But let's go through some things. We've got a lot of things I want to talk about. Let's ask some questions. And personally, I'm not sure if I have all the answers for our questions. One question is, why is the number of analysts falling? And another question is has the number of analysts at brokers fallen because research has moved in-house? 20 years ago, fund management companies didn't have any analysts. So maybe that's just been a transition. We haven't actually run out of analysts. They've just moved. Another question that I ask is, where are individuals getting their investment advice? Are analysts even necessary anymore? That's a sad question for an analyst to think about. So another one is, can people now make better decisions on their own? And do people understand the difference, this is very important, between luck and skill in the process of prediction? My answer to that is absolutely no. I doubt it, highly likely. And most important, last question is, should we celebrate or punish when analysts are wrong? Okay, let's talk about this. We're going to go through a lot of things. But first, you have a piece of paper and a pencil right down there. First thing I want you to do is write down on this page, if you looked at this stock price, would you buy or sell stock A? Please write down A and write down whether you would buy or sell. We don't have time to discuss, and the rules of this game is no questions. So, you've got your buy or sell recommendation. Next one, stock B. Would you buy or sell this stock? I'm seeing some people are not writing down buy and sell recommendations, but that's the job of an analyst. We have to make a conclusion with the information. I see the Secretary General is writing down his recommendation, so everybody should follow him. And how about, finally, stock C? Would you buy or sell? Of course, as an analyst, all my career, they told me, never say hold. So I don't give you that option. So let's talk about research for a moment. But before, I want to tell you a story. Forget the presentation. My job as an analyst is to do research. And I recently found a stock that's amazing. You don't know anything about this stock. Maybe one person in this audience or two. It's cheap. It's growing. And it's dividend paying. And the best part about it is it's uncovered. There's no analyst covering this stock. I've been doing research on this stock for the last 3 weeks. Yesterday I had a meeting with the company, and I feel confident in my recommendation. Would you like to know the name of this stock? So I made all of that up. But I wanted to highlight to you that investing is about emotion. What is the emotion? The emotion is greed and fear. And in this case, it was your greed. And just by giving you some basic information, I can trigger your emotion. So let's continue on. And as I say, that was just made up. So don't ask me at the break what stock that was. Now, what is the ultimate objective? Well, I'm going to talk through a very quick story about a man named Dave. Dave was a young guy. As he grew up, you can see pictures of him. And Dave, some things you want to know about Dave is that he has no interest in finance. And the stock market bores Dave. And he would rather be playing golf or taking selfies. But despite this lack of interest, Dave still needs to take care of his finances. So that's Dave, and that's the mountain he has to climb. And he needs some support from people like you, financial professionals. So, a financial professional should put clients' interest first. So if we talk about self-regulation, the regulator is the policeman or woman in the market, finding gross violations. But it's our job as market participants to try to put the interest of our clients first. And this, if we do it right, will be our self-regulation. So let's continue on with the story. And today I'm going to encourage you to consider something rather corny but helpful. And that is, care for clients as you would your mother. Now, what I'm trying to say is that if we want to self-regulate ourselves, if we think of our client as our mother, we're not going to rip off our mother. Well, I didn't say mother-in-law. Now, so let's continue on. Dave meets Kathy, and they have a bright future ahead of them. And eventually, in 1958, they get married, and Dave's financial commitments begin. And he wants to build a successful career, a family life, have a wife. He needs a financial professional. Now, this story of this man, Dave, let's just say that he started to work at DuPont. In those days, everything was great. Dave got his PhD, and then he went to work for DuPont. And the benefit of working for DuPont at that time was that, of course, you get the support of the company as you save and invest over your lifetime, right? And at the same year, in 1965, he had his only son. Now, Dave wants to go forward and build a career and put his kids through school. But to do this, he needs you, financial professionals. So, let's get back to the story. It's family time, and Dave and Kathy are building their family. And over time, they need to set and start to follow some financial plans and investments. And it's their interest that the financial professionals, you, should put first. Are you? With your clients? So, it's time for Dave and Kathy to buy their first house. So here they are. There's Kathy with her son walking out of the door. It's their first major financial decision. And you know that's a complicated decision for them. It's not for you. You understand interest rates. You understand borrowing. But it is. For them, it's very complicated. And over time, they started to engage with financial professionals like you. And the hope is that you, from today forward, anytime you see my face on the SkyTrain or in a car or at a meeting, you're going to say to me, care for clients as you would your mother. So, the colorful family life starts to grow. Kids get older. There's a family and responsibilities, job. But remember, Dave hates the stock market. He's not interested in it. It's your job as a financial professional to help him in that area. And he trusts you to do that. So, after a while, Dave is working for DuPont, and the benefit of working for DuPont is that he gets benefits. He gets support. That's gone nowadays. When Dave has kids and grandkids, they're not going to have any support in the way that Dave had it. And in that case, of course, it's a defined benefit. And Dr. Pissett's here from the Association of Provident Funds, and he knows all about the issues that we're facing. We all know there's a lot of issues about that. But Dave and Kathy, as they grow up, they can be happy because they have a defined benefit plan. And then it's time for Dave and Kathy to spend on education. And education is another cost. They want to continue to put their kids through school. Their daughter graduates from high school. And if unethical financial professionals who did not put their clients' interests first, they would suffer seriously. So, over time, the family is growing, education costs are rising, the two other kids have to start to go to school. And Dave and Kathy meet Larry. Larry is a financial advisor. Now, he is not a CFA charter holder, but he is a CFP. And this story is very real because Larry starts to give good investment advice to Dave and Kathy. And as Dave's hair is graying, the kids are growing up, they're getting ready for retirement. And thanks to responsible advice that put the client first, Dave is able to retire at the age of 60. And then the family is bigger and getting older. And over time, Dave has reached his goal of financial independence. You know how hard it is for a young person today to reach that goal? It's extremely hard. But Dave and Kathy reached that goal, and they had their own retirement, and a happy retirement. And over that, they had 22 years of retirement. They're doing the things that they wanted to do. Now, we know most people who retire in Thailand won't have the money to do the things that they want to do, unfortunately. And so let's continue on. And now, it's 58 years of marriage. And with age comes more complex financial needs. And you can see that their son is me. And that's my mom and dad, Dave and Kathy. My mom had a stroke, and now she's in a wheelchair. And her needs are getting much more intense. And if the financial professionals who take care of Dave and Kathy did not put their interests first, they would be in trouble. Now, more than 22 years of comfortable retirement, and there's Dave and myself with a little bit of a beard, having a coffee at a Starbucks. Dave is 80-some years old at that point, and he is living a great retirement life. Throughout his life, he's received good advice, not rip-off advice, not bad advice, but advice that put him, the client, first. Dave, my dad, took me to the company that took care of him. And I took this picture when we were there so that we could look at that. And you remember this picture? So the news of this picture is that this was my dad's last day on the earth. My dad had a massive stroke on that day, and he passed away. But we were able to be together, and he lived a healthy, happy life. But things got worse for our family because my mom's condition got worse. And there's my sister and my mother and me. She's in a nursing home and trying to get recovered. Imagine if what she had to deal with, or what the kids had to deal with, was a financial situation that was a mess. No, because she had financial professionals who put her first, she had the money and the resources to take care of that. Now, there's some good news at the end of this story, and that is because the advisors put the client first, and they cared for client as you would your mother. Then what happened is I brought my mother to live with me in Bangkok, Thailand. My mother's been with me now almost 3 years. She's recovered. But most importantly to her is she doesn't want to be a burden on me. And in fact, my mother has enough money to support herself for the rest of her life. And the story about Dave is my story to you about putting investors first. So I want you to remember to care for clients as you would your mother. Now, the story gets a little bit better. This is a video, but I doubt it's going to play. But that's my mother playing. Whoop, there it is. So her son's an analyst, so I track every single thing about her. If you came to my house, you'd see all the charts and graphs that are out there. So that's a story I want to start off with. Well, why are we here? Are we here to make you money? Are we here to make your employees money or your bosses money? No, we're here for the benefit of the client. So what is the role? Are analysts dinosaurs? Let's look at this for a second. So there's about 80,000, according to the SEC's website, which is a little bit difficult to navigate. But once I navigated it, we have 59,000 investment consultants, 22,000 marketing representatives, 726 analysts, and in Thailand we only have about 600 or so CFA charter holders. First of all, it's a tiny number of people that are involved in the actions of being an analyst and driving the market forces of what analysts are supposed to drive. In fact, most of the people in the market are selling products. But we are selling, analysts should be selling their opinions, right? We give buy and sell recommendations. We do work. We do research. So what is research? Well, this man, Dr. Deming, was a teacher of mine when I was 25 years old. That's me on the right-hand side with more hair at that time on my face than I have on my head right now. I wrote this book about him, but he taught me, what he taught me was, without questions and a theory, there is nothing to modify or learn. So what do I mean by that? When I did my PhD, after I finished that, I went through and said, what really is research? And here it is. First, we ask a question. Is this a good investment? And then, after that, we summarize previous research that exists, because maybe our question has already been answered. And after that, we formulate a hypothesis to test, and then we get our data, and then we create our data set that we tested on. We formulate a methodology to test that, and then after that, we present and analyze the research. I presented this to my professor on my last day of my PhD when I graduated. I said, I know the trick. Now I'm going to do all of my academic research. It's going to be in PowerPoint, and it's going to follow this style. And finally, I say we have to advise how to apply this for investment research. So the question is, how accurate are analysts' research forecasts or earnings forecasts? This is the subject of my dissertation. And here is the answer to that, right? First, we have to think about, have you ever successfully predicted the future? I'm sure you have. I'm sure you have. Have you ever been able to consistently predict the future? Let me ask you, do you know someone who can consistently predict the future? Now, if I asked this audience who has been to see a fortune teller, who would raise their hand? Of course, almost everybody has been to see a fortune teller. So maybe a fortune teller can consistently predict the future. I like what Yogi Berra said about prediction, and that is, it's tough to make predictions, especially about the future, which of course what all predictions are. And that's why I look at analysts' performance, and we can see that blue line is the result of my dissertation, and that sums up into one thing, and that is about 22%. What does that mean? Analysts forecast that companies will produce 122 in earnings, and the companies produce 100. Now, this is globally. We know that there's optimism bias in the behavior of analysts. In fact, we know it very well. Now, I looked at this data for Thailand, and basically, it's about 25%. So analysts actually are about globally competitive in their forecast and in their level of getting things wrong in Thailand. So I want to ask the question, what is the role that randomness plays in prediction? So what is this? Statistics teaches us, right? Statistics teaches us to be a better analyst. I believe it can. Now imagine a stadium filled with 10,000 people in it. Now, you ask them to stand up and flip a coin. We could do it in this room, but I don't want to bother you at this point. But let's just say that the people in the room who flip tails go to that side because you're bad, right? And the people in the room who flip heads go to this side because you're good. It's like a winning bet in the stock market, right? So if we do this, we have 10,000 people in the room, what is this going to look like? On our first flip, we're going to ask all of you guys to flip, and then we're going to split the room roughly 50-50. The heads on one side, the tails on the other. Then, after that, we're going to say, okay, flip it again. And if you're on the side of the heads and you flip a second head in a row, 2 in a row, stay standing. But if you flip a tails, sit down. And the same thing on this side, if you flip a head or you flip a tail 2 times in a row, stand up and stay standing, sit down if you don't. And so if we go through this over time, we're going to see that most people are sitting down, but there's going to be 625 people on both sides of the room still standing up. And if we go through this process a 5th time, a 6th time, a 7th time, an 8th time, and a 9th time, and a 10th time, in that room of 10,000 people, there's going to be 10 people, 10 small group of people on this side, and 10 small group of people on this side that are still standing because they flipped heads every time, and they flip tails every time. You don't think this applies to the investment world? It does, absolutely. So remember when I asked you the question at the beginning, should we blame analysts when they're wrong? Of course, you think you should blame analysts when you're wrong. But the point is that just by randomness, they are going to be wrong. Often. But if we need the analysts' contribution, we need them to make a prediction. We have only salespeople in the industry these days. We don't have enough people that are willing to make an opinion and be wrong. Now, if an analyst is wrong through negligence or gross negligence, that's something different. But we must reward and cheer the analysts that are willing to stand up and say, this is a sell. This is a buy. And we must reward the ones that say, this is a sell, because there's almost none. In the rest of my presentation, because I've run out of time, you can see the latest statistics on the distribution of analyst recommendations. And you can see that there's almost no sell recommendations. Why? Analysts are afraid. We don't support them to stand up and tell us. You think that there's no stocks that are sells? There's a huge number of stocks that are sells. But the point that I'm making is that when you're an analyst, and the role of an analyst in the market is you are an opinion giver through your research. And we must cherish their desire and their willingness and their effort to make those decisions and opinions. Because I'm telling you, nobody else is going to. Many people are just selling a product. So, ladies and gentlemen, I will wrap up at this point by telling you that the role of an analyst and the purpose of an analyst is not dead. We need analysts. We need people who will analyze and think and test and develop theories. This is how we learn. The scientific method is what I showed you in the research. And the scientific method is the way that we accumulate knowledge in society. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm not a dinosaur. And the analysts in your teams and the analysts that you work with, you must embrace them and encourage them to stand up for their role to make a buy and particularly a sell opinion. And you must accept that sometimes they are wrong through luck, and sometimes they are wrong because they got it wrong, but we must cherish their opinion. Thank you very much.